Hello and welcome to another daily Muppet. In today's video, we're going to talk about United's summer really taking off, finally, and right on time, as Joshua Zirkzee is done. We're going to talk about Van Nistelrooy and Rene Hake, talk about Matthijs de Ligt, Lenny Yoro, Yoro and Branthwaite, the fullback situation, Greenwood, the midfield, and more. So let's get into it. But first, another intro made by our good friend, Jevin.
You were the only one that was nearly as strong as me.
Buddy, you think you look strong? You're wearing a cape. You're just a cheap fucking knockoff.
Oh no. I'm the upgrade.
I mind this bitch for us.
if if you've watched The Boys, then I think you'll get that one. But anyway, another good one, Jevin. Thank you for the intro there. That was something. Okay, so Joshua Zirkzee. Yesterday, we obviously got the breaking from Fabrizio Romano in the morning that Joshua Zirkzee to United was a done deal, and as expected, United did not pay the release clause. As we talked about over the weekend in a couple videos, 40 million euros. If you're doing it as a release clause, you're paying it all at once. Instead, United agreed a deal for 42.5 million euros, paid over 3 years. And this simply means that they can make payments of about 14 million euros a year for the next 3 years and have it paid off. PSR, profit and sustainability rules, this doesn't matter. It's going to be about 8 million per year on the amortization. So it's going to count against us 8 million a year in euros. However, what makes a difference here is that one of the things that was revealed in the United filings on their finances is that they paid down the debt on that revolving credit line significantly by a couple hundred million, I believe. They have a lot of transfer fees due, something like 300 million. However, a lot of those are in the next 12 months. And so I think the goal here is they've used the money to pay that debt down. It's going to reduce finance costs. They're going to pay off those transfer fees. And then if they can keep agreeing good amortization deals that are spread out, they'll never have this situation where they're really cash tight and end up having to keep doing borrowings. And ideally, even without extra money being dumped in, this will allow them to slowly chip away at that. Not the debt from the Glazers originally, but the debt on that revolving credit line, and pay that down over time and reduce the overall net kind of debt of the club. And it doesn't make a huge difference, but it can help in finance costs, things like that, some of which have gotten very expensive. And have been a contributor to the PSR issue. So it helps and it doesn't, but it does. So you don't have to overthink it too much. Obviously, the biggest positive with Joshua Zirkzee coming in, young Serie A player of the year, a different type of striker, and as the great intro alluded to, a player more in the mold of Anthony Martial at striker or Roberto Firmino at striker. And if you watch him play, you will definitely gather that. Now, he is quick. He is fast on his feet. He's very tall, so he is not a slow player. I'm not saying he has blazing speed like, maybe Højlund or Rashford or Garnacho, frankly. But he is not slow. He is not lumbering. He is well in control of himself for his height and his size. Very, very good with the ball at his feet. Very good getting into the spaces. Very good breaking the last line of defense with a pass and unlocking a runner. Someone I think that will make a massive, massive difference. And if you've been watching the videos, you know that I've kind of been banging on this for some time, that there was a plan put in place in terms of the evaluation of United's squad to say, how do we get the most out of our players? Because if we sell Bruno, we sell Rashford, we move on from these players, that doesn't make us any better. And a decision was kind of made what would be the best way. So while they were open to the idea of offers for a lot of these players, in general, the ideal was if you're replacing them, it's going to take 3 to 5 years to build back up, minimum. if you can get the right team in place of young players around them, you can remain competitive at the top level and build things up while overall making the squad younger. Look at the forwards now. Joshua Zirkzee, what is he, 23? Rasmus Højlund is, how old is Rasmus Højlund? How old are these players? Rasmus Højlund, 21, right? Joshua Zirkzee, he may be younger than 23. Yeah, he's 23. Obviously, Garnacho is 19. He turned 20 on July 1st. Rashford's only 26, 27. So you've got a young forward line in there. If you can get Ahmad too, you got a really young forward line that can last 5+ years. So you start to really lower that average age and have a team that can grow together and be competitive and be flexible. So I think we're going to see a lot of what we saw last year, but we're also going to see a lot of flexing in there with Joshua Zirkzee playing with Højlund as well, okay? So sometimes I think people have taken it to say, well, it means Højlund's not going to play and they don't rate him, and that's not the case at all. It is simply a matter of giving them flexibility and getting the most out of everyone. I could really see United playing, and I'll probably do something on this next week and maybe bring somebody else in too, but I could definitely see United playing a little bit like in possession, more of a 3-4-3 type of thing, and pushing the fullbacks up, and there's different ways that Ten Hag has played at Ajax that have matched kind of what you can see being built here right now in between the phases of the team, and they start to make sense together. Zirkzee dropping in, potentially Ligt pushing up, and another midfielder. One of the underrated things about Zirkzee that I do go on about is he's also an incredible presser. He was, I think, first ranked for tackles made among forwards or strikers in Serie A last year. He is a really, really good presser, very intelligent presser, someone who can lead that press. So I think that helps a lot in this whole concept of United shortening the pitch, pushing up high, and getting in there. This, to me, is my most exciting signing of the summer. It's already happened. I know I'm not saying that we don't need more. I'm not saying we don't need a 6. I'm not saying that. But for me, this is the most exciting one. And it's not because I think he's going to come in and score 20 goals. It's because I think he's going to enable the team to be at its best and help everybody else elevate their game around him. I think he's that type of player. I think it's like when we did have, I think always reference Cavani. Different player in essence, but when Cavani was at United, he had some similarities. The work rate, the pressing, he was a bit more well-rounded in his game rather than just poaching in terms of dropping in, linking up play, and doing all of that. When he was involved, United looked so much better alone just from him, and the same when Martial was on song as a striker. So that's my hope. Makes a big difference for absolutely everybody in the team. I also think it's a big part of making Bruno happy and making Rashford happy and making Garnacho happy and making him look at it and say, got it. I see how I can fit. I see how I can play to my strengths now. And I think that's an underrated aspect and a very important one. So Joshua Zirkzee, he will do his medical. It's already been done, or at least part of it. Should wrap it up. I don't know if he'll be announced yet, but then he's going to go on holiday. We will have to see how long he's on holiday for, since he already did have a holiday. I will hope he could come back in 10, 12 days and go on the U.S. tour. It would be great to see one new signing on the U.S. tour, because we're not going to see anybody else from our signings, unfortunately, unless Yoro and Branthwaite still comes through, and then we might. Otherwise, Van Nistelrooy and René Hake announced. Obviously, we're going to have to see how they play, what they do, what they bring to the table, but, in general, replacing Benny McCarthy and Van de Gogh. And when we're also seeing that other goalkeeping coach coming in, replacing the departing Richard Hardis, who is definitely a goalkeeper coach focused on more of an old-style keeper, and did a great job with David De Gea and helped with him during some of his best years of his career when he was top goalkeeper. So it's not an insult, it's just a change in the way that we want to play moving forward that likely suits this, and it's another sign of the way we want to move things up on the pitch. I think the departure of Mitchell van der Gogh is probably a positive for everybody. There were conflicts between him and players, conflicts between him and other staff, and, I'm not going to go on and on about it because I understand that people don't want to, but there's a lot of people who will feel this is a good thing, and I'm not really talking about players. There's a lot of people around who will think of this as a good thing, and will feel that, you know, bringing in Van Nistelrooy, someone that will help vastly improve the connection between the coaching staff and the club, and the players and everybody involved, and other staff. So I think it's a big deal. I think that it's going to provide, you know, a lot more flexibility in United as a team and as a coaching staff. And, you know, it's hard to know what they're going to do, but refreshing assistants and things can make a huge difference, and is often a real positive. This was something that was pushed for by Ineos as a condition of Ten Hag's staying, was kind of part of their backup plan, was to say, okay, we need to make changes in this no matter what. Regardless, Ten Hag goes, Ten Hag stays, we need to make changes in the coaching department. And sometimes those coaches make a bigger difference. So they've been looking at this for a long time. Obviously, people that Ten Hag feels happy and comfortable to work with, that he wants. And that's all good. I think this is common ground between Ineos and Ten Hag. Very exciting that they're getting started. A lot of positivity. Medical staff overhaul as well. Continuing, as I mentioned on July 2nd's video, that there would be new staff starting. It's my understanding that most of them already started. They're not going to do announcements for the medical staff, I don't believe, but obviously there's people in there. And the main goal in that change in the medical area, the change in all of these things, is just to improve on the rehabilitation of certain players and do it in the manner that Gary O'Driscoll sees best, which he has the full backing and support of Ineos, and Sir Dave Brailsford has been working with him quite well. So more to come on that, ideally. But, you know, sometimes when we look at the team, people will say, well, yeah, but what about if these two players get injured again? Here's the thing. We can't have another season like last, injury-wise. We just can't. There's nothing we can do in the market that's going to proof us up against that. We can't have that kind of injury season. So changes to the coaching is good, because I think there's a lot more oversight, and there's a little bit more, you know, with Wilcox in there, with Ashworth in there, in terms of how things are being done. And then changes to the medical department to, you know, in certain areas where I think that certain players won't come back earlier than they should. It's better to take that extra week and not return than it is to return early and get injured again, like with Luke Shaw, as he described. So hopefully that's what the medical staff and department are focused on, is full and complete rehab, and nobody getting rushed back, and doing things in the proper times, and we stop seeing all those setbacks. So when we have injuries, it's not these 4 or 5 months, but it's a couple weeks and they're back, 4 weeks and they're back, worst case, and that we have fewer. So that is good there. On Matthijs de Ligt, progress is being made there. I don't mean to recycle it too much and keep going on and on about this. I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything. I don't mean to recycle it. I'm just giving the update on the situation, because the reality is they're still in talks with Bayern. And again, the focus continues to be on those add-ons, on how you build up to that 50 million euros fee, because they have to be realistic enough for Bayern to accept a lower fee and to reach kind of compromise there. So we'll see where they end up, but there's a lot of feeling that this is now going to get done pretty soon. So yeah, that's optimistic. Now, on Yoro, it's still quite unlikely, as we saw from Fabrizio Romano. Madrid talking to him all the time, you know, pushing for him to join, telling him he's a key part of their project. He's telling them he wants to join Madrid still. He hasn't flat out said no or denied us. You know, to some degree, you could say, well, that means he's open to joining. That's possible. The other possibility is simply that they need to keep United option open to keep the pressure on Madrid to get him this summer, between him and Jorge Mendes. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it seems unlikely. And my personal opinion of how this is going to go, I'm curious about this, but my personal opinion of how this is going to go is, while we work to finish Matthijs de Ligt, we have this Euro situation open. That helps us in the negotiations for Matthijs de Ligt, because we have an offer for a better prospect, potentially, you know, a younger player, bigger prospect out there for 50 million euros flat, or plus add-ons, but 50 million euros is the fee, is actually the base fee there. So we could agree a deal that gives us a little bit of negotiating angle. And what I think is that it's more likely that we will give Yoro until we wrap up the Matthijs de Ligt negotiation. And then we will decide, do we keep the Yoro case open or do we go and make another offer for Yoro and Branthwaite? All this could have kind of happened at the same time, however it's reported. But I think that's still the strategy. They're still considering another bid for Yoro and Branthwaite. They haven't yet walked away. As I said, in a recent video, from my understanding, Everton were feeling pretty firm on the price that was out of range. But maybe there's an openness if, again, that 55 million. That's always been the mark for me that I've mentioned, is if a bid comes in around 55, that it might open the discussions. At least that was the case. I don't know if it still is, but it's still being considered anyway. So there must be some hope. I still think Yoro and Branthwaite is the number one target there. And as I was discussing with Phil earlier this week, I think for good reason. Because of his flexibility, he could potentially save you on a left back. You're getting two players in one in a lot of ways. You're getting coverage for Lissandro. You're getting coverage for the other side. You're getting pairings you can make across the back line there. And that will give you and help with continuity. And you're also getting a different profile. Faster, bigger, taller frame, two-footed player. So, yeah, that is still being considered at the moment. But right now, I would say Matthijs de Ligt looks like it's going to happen pretty soon. And then I have a feeling once that happens, they'll drop the case on Yoro and make another offer for Yoro and Branthwaite. However, a big part of that is reliant on this Mason Greenwood thing as well. This needs to get wrapped up. Obviously, we've had a deal with Marseille. Johnny Evans signs new deal at Manchester United, staying at the club for one more season until June 2025. Okay. Johnny Evans has stayed. So, given that, with regards to our strategy, that's why I don't see three center backs coming in here. I don't think that we will see three. I think that, it doesn't really make sense to do that when you have Johnny Evans. I'm not saying like Johnny Evans is this like whatever. You have Johnny Evans, Willy Kambwala, who provide depth options that you can use in cup games and things like that, and a pinch, So if you have Lissandro Martinez and Matthijs de Ligt coming in, you still have Lindelof and Maguire. Well, you could definitely sell, even if you sell both of them, one more center back coming in. If you get two more on top of that, then you don't really need Johnny Evans in there. And there's probably not much minutes for Willy Kambwala. So I think still it's likely two. I feel like it's Matthijs de Ligt, and then we'll walk away from Yoro and still try to get Branthwaite, I think. But obviously up in the air, but Johnny Evans staying. Now, in order to make these bigger bids, we do need to make an offer for, we need to wrap up Mason Greenwood. We need to get that done. We need to have that wrapped up. Yep, we need to have that wrapped up. We need to have that finished. He's close. He's been close to the move to France, but it's kind of still stalling a little. DiMarzio's kind of keeps bringing up different names at different places. There's reports today that Napoli have agreed a fee around the same as Marseille, to come in and pay around 30 million euros. There's some reports on that. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but obviously it's up to him. But we need that decision to be kind of made now and finished so that he can move to one of those clubs, because we need the profit from that really in order to buy a second center back. As I mentioned in a previous video, and again, there will be a PSR coming today, a PSR video today, I would estimate we have about 75 million. We've used about 35 for Zirkzee. We were using about 40 for probably de Ligt. So to get another one, we need the profitability from Greenwood. And remember, it's not 25 equals 25. 25, we can spend a bit more now. It opens up more because the buy is going to be over 5 years. The sale is all at once. So we need that, and that will allow us to make a pretty decent bid at another center back. But beyond that, we still probably need more sales in order to move into the midfield. There's still talk of, Casemiro leaving. There's been a lot of talk in the last couple of days of Casemiro leaving. There's been more and more from Saudi. The interest is there. The links are there. It's still very plausible that he leaves to Saudi. There's been discussions over it. But in terms of the specific clubs, it's not totally clear yet. And there was a report from someone that, Al Ittihad was coming in for Casemiro. But there was a lot of people who messaged me saying that that was not the case and that they wouldn't be. They have Fabinho and Conte there, so I would guess that that's the reason why that one is unlikely unless they're moving them. There are other potential clubs that could do it, but it's not really clear yet. And I think for a couple more days until the window opens, it's not going to be 100% clear. So we're still waiting on that. But that is a big deal because we're going to need more departures, coming in. We're going to need more departures coming in, leaving the club to fund, a decent midfield purchase. If whether it's Ugarte, and I'm a little concerned because there hasn't been a lot of links. There's practically none beyond him. And I can understand it. If we don't get more sales, then we probably do need a loan. And if they're open to that, then maybe that becomes an option. But otherwise, we're exploring the loan market. If we don't get more sales, then we don't really have the money to go and do all of this. So we need more departures. And there may be offers for McTominay that come in, and United are going to have to consider that, right? Because he's going to be considering his future, where he wants to go next, what he wants to do next, and having discussions with the club when he returns about that. If there are good offers for him, he wants to be a first-team player and play regularly. And if there's good offers for him where he can go do that, then they have to consider that. Because unless something comes in for Casemiro, which is really tough in terms of from Europe, so Saudi feels like the only option, then they're going to have to make some sales in order to do something here. And I think that's why it's a bit slow still at the moment on there. Now, who knows? Maybe in the next few days it all breaks loose. Maybe we get Ligt and we can't get another center back in. That wouldn't be great, but we would then probably use the money elsewhere. Also, obviously, we could sell Lindelof or Maguire, and that would help raise some funds for the midfield as well. But we do need to make some space there also. So that's really a thing to keep an eye on. The midfield and moving forward in there is probably contingent on settling on what we're spending in the center back department, including the sale of Mason Greenwood, as well as then seeing can we get more sales, especially Casemiro, McTominay, Lindelof, and Maguire, and keeping a close eye on all of that. But they're still in talks over Ugarte. They're still having discussions. They're still working on it, I suppose. Yeah, Johnny Evans announced there. So, obviously I don't expect he's going to play too much. But he didn't expect to play too much last year. But it's good to have him. It's good to have him. More experience in the dressing room. Homegrown player. If we sell Maguire, if we're selling any other homegrown players, that might be a necessity as well. McTominay, Maguire, we might need him in terms of having more homegrown players in the squad. So that's just an important aspect of that to keep in mind. I was just thinking of. Moving on to the next aspect of this. Now, just again, to wrap that up, once Mason is sold, and that should happen at least in the next few days, that decision will be made on his side, and that's what everybody's waiting for. Then I believe that they'll wrap up De Ligt and move forward with maybe another offer for Branthwaite or sit on the Yoro one. And then we need more departures. They'll look then to, continue trying to figure out how to sell in order to progress in the midfield, or see if they can agree to some kind of loan deal with PSG for Ugarte. So that's where that situation is. Now, in terms of fullbacks, as I mentioned earlier in the weeks, there was nothing concrete yet about an offer coming in for Wan-Bissaka. That has not taken place. There has been no bid for Wan-Bissaka at this time. And it is still an area to be looked at. United are concerned about the fitness situation of Tyrell Malacia, whether he will ever be able to play at the level necessary again and what to do with that. Luke Shaw, we know we have questions over his fitness issues. I think that they will give a look to Harry Amas at left back. And then I think that they're going to have to wait until later on in the window to see where they end up with all their other signings, whether they can bring in a Yoro and Branthwaite who could cover on that side as well, and decide then what to do with the budget and if they have a budget left for a fullback. Now, I've been checking on the links to Ferdi Kadioglu from good Turkish source, and as I understand it, United are interested. They are interested. They're not the only ones. There are other clubs in England, aside from Brighton, big clubs who are interested in Ferdi Kadioglu and looking at him. So we've got to keep an eye on it because it's going to take United a little while, I think, to get to this area, potentially. There are obviously the other names, Aït-Nouri, Kirkes, etc., but, you know, they're going to need, one way or another, 25 to 40 million to buy a decent fullback, a young fullback in this department from those names. So, yeah, we're going to have to see. But if they could agree a deal with Lindelof to go to Fenerbahce, and then and then you know, include a good value in it both ways, that could help something happen here. So that is another one to keep an eye on. There is interest from United, and his flexibility being able to play on both sides could open the door if an offer does come in for Wan-Bissaka, which it could. If West Ham do not get their primary targets, they will move to him. It could. And then he could be coverage for both sides, and that could be useful, especially if Harry Hamas is decent. Then you've got flexibility, I think, between all of the options. So that's what we have for today. Progress being made, moving forward. United are being fairly nimble when it comes to, you know, they're being fairly nimble when it comes to how they want to move on the center back thing. But I would look at it kind of like Zirkzee done, great. They have the budget for one center back, which looks like it'll be Ligt. If it's Yoro and Yoro says yes suddenly, could they walk away from Ligt? Maybe. Or maybe they have to wait. They're going to need to sell Mason Greenwood to use it on a second center back signing. Then they will look to sell Lindelof, Maguire, continue to look at sales in the midfield, which they will need in order to make either a third center back signing or a second forward signing, which I think are both the more unlikely scenarios, or more likely move into the midfield and make a signing there. Otherwise, they'll be looking at loans. And then additionally, depending on who they get in the back line, then and what offers come in, look at the fullback area as well. So a lot still up in the air, a lot of progress being made. We know a lot of the main names outside of, in the midfield, we've got practically nobody but Ugarte. And we've got to keep an eye on all of that for now. But good strategy overall. I think it's going to start all coming through, especially in the next few days when they wrap up this Ligt and Yoro situation. Then I think a lot will start to come. And Greenwood goes, then I think we move kind of out of phase one, which was our initial signings, and into the next phase of movement. And we decide whether we're going for Branthwaite and then move on to other positions finally. Not that we haven't been working on it, but in terms of our ability to move forward. Okay? I hope that was all informative and helpful. Again, there should be a PSR video coming out from PJ on our channel sometime today, as long as it uploads in time, otherwise first thing tomorrow, but keep an eye on that because I think it's really good information to have and to understand how United are operating. Thank you for watching today's video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next one.